Hi, my name's Dr. Zach Carton, and today I'm going to review Superfeet's hike support insoles. These are very common, and I frequently get asked questions about Superfeet and these insoles in particular, as they are one of the most common and popular Superfeet types. I purchased the fit profile that has medium to high arch height and the max insole thickness. So just keep that in mind as I do my review. I'm going to run through some standard tests that I do when I'm reviewing any sort of insole, and then I'll give you kind of my final thoughts about what I think, what these are good for, and where you may want to look for alternatives for certain activities. So let's get them out of the box. All right. Just taking a quick look. And I think my first thought is I'm pleasantly surprised by the quality and the build of these insoles. Right off the bat, I see three materials. There's kind of this felt liner over a foam that's about, let's see. Oops, I'm going to lose this ball. That's about, oh, I need to zero it. That's about 1.75 millimeters, and then an orange layer that's about another 1.25 millimeters. So 3 millimeters for the entire thickness of the foam area. And then additionally, there's this plastic component that provides the arch support across the midfoot and base of the insole. And I am noticing that there's a little bit of cushioning material here that I think for marketing reasons they may allow to go through the plastic and let you push against, and it does seem to be fairly high quality gel. So right off the bat, I want to say these look like they are high quality insoles that you buy over the counter, and they have a reasonable enough design. I typically think when there's too much on the cover here, that can be a little bit distracting, and I think for some people who want to put these in business shoes, not necessarily just hiking shoes, it can be a little bit dramatic to see something so stark. But otherwise, I don't have any issues with that. So I want to run through my standard measurements. I already measured the thickness of the front at around 4.5 millimeters. And then I want to measure the total height of the base. That's 24 millimeters or 2.4 centimeters, so pretty good heel cup height. And then finally, the max height for the arch is another 2.5 centimeters. So we're talking decent arch support. They say high, medium, high for arch height here, and I'm not surprised at the 2.5 centimeters that is a reasonable amount. I also want to do drop test of a 2-pound ball. I do it usually at a 12-inch height, and we'll first do it on the table so you can see what no insole propulsive rebound gives you. And it's basically nothing. It doesn't bounce at all. So let's try it again, but on the front of the insole. I'll make sure the microphone's not covering it. So you get a little bit more bounce compared to just the table. So I would expect for hiking and some activity, this would be pretty good and offer some propulsive effect, but it's nothing that's particularly strong about these insoles. By comparison, for some custom orthotics that I've reviewed, we get something like 3 to 4 inches of elastic rebound and maybe 3 bounces. So this had 2, and the second bounce was around a ½ inch. So not bad, nothing to write home about. Let me see if I can get this to not roll off the table. All right. So next, I want to measure the actual hardness. So I have a durometer here of these insoles, and this still tells us how soft or hard the material is. When I push it down, we get a shore hardness of around 20, which is on the higher end actually of stiffness, particularly for over-the-counter insoles, the foam compartment of them. That's pretty good, and I think it explains why there's some elastic rebound that you may not see in like a Dr. Scholl's or another lower end over-the-counter orthotic. 20 is not going to cause foot pain or be too hard to walk on, but it is going to be able to receive a lot of impact and distribute it better than an insole that's just too soft. So I'm pleasantly surprised by that as well. Another thing I like to measure is just how bendable or malleable the orthotic is. First, when I hold it up like this, you can see that it doesn't fall against the weight of gravity, which is right off the bat a very good sign. When I try to bend it in half, the plastic arch does resist compression quite a bit, so I'm happy in that direction. And then I'm going to fold it laterally. And same thing, the plastic base really does resist quite a bit of compression. That said, the foam in the front is very, very easy to manipulate. That's not a problem, but it is something to keep in mind. So far, I'm continuing to be pleasantly surprised by what the Superfeet hike insoles offer, but I do want to point out a couple things that are lacking. So first, there is no additional modules or topological changes for the forefoot. Even though it has kind of these cool designs in the front, there's no actual difference in what's going on in the foam across the forefoot and toes. That means if you suffer from something like metatarsalgia, pain in the balls of your feet, or you have toe pain, bunion pain, this isn't going to be able to correct or at least house your feet in a way that's going to reduce pain in the forefoot. On the rear foot, however, there is a nice gel cushion. I think that would be helpful for people with any sort of heel pain, but particularly from plantar fasciitis. And moreover, there is decent arch support, which is unique for over-the-counter insoles. Lastly, there is a nice heel cup as well. It has good depth to it, which I did not yet measure. It is about, let me make sure I'm doing this right. It's about 1.5 centimeters deep, which is very good for over-the-counter insoles. Moreover, it's a true heel cup versus other heel cups that you might see on a Dr. Scholl's or something that is CVS or Walgreens brand, where the foam does curl up around the heel, but it's very easy to bend it flat. In this case, no matter kind of how much pressure I'm putting against it, it's able to maintain the heel cup shape, which is great for people that have ankle instability, and particularly if you're going to be doing hiking or any activity with lateral movement. So beyond hiking, I think these are actually quite good for most sports. I like the medial arch rise, so how high the arch rises on the inside of the insole versus how little it rises on the outside. That's very good for people who are doing any kind of lateral activity, tennis, basketball, court sports in particular. These probably aren't going to be the best if you're doing something that's going to be where you're going to spend a significant amount of the time on the balls of your feet. So if you're kind of a long distance runner with good form where you're really impacting the push off phase of your gait, these aren't going to provide any special benefits. I also would like to point out that while these do have good arch supports, they don't really come close to what custom insoles can offer. So if you're someone who's really looking for the next level of support, either if you have very high arches or collapsed flat feet that need something really strong to push up, these may not be good for you. And I would like to point out that while this plastic base is quite sturdy, this piece of plastic, it's very thin. It doesn't have real thickness to it. I can get my nail underneath of it to give you a sense of just how truly thick it is, and I'll do my best to get my calipers in there and give you a sense of how thick. Yeah, it's around 1.3 millimeters thick, this plastic, which means that even though there is arch support, a majority of that support is coming from the built-up foam layers, not actually solid plastic. That means over time, I would expect some compression. Foam doesn't last forever, particularly if you're doing high-intensity activities frequently, like hiking. But definitely in the short term, I would expect anywhere from 6 months to a year of quality relief from these insoles. With that, that concludes my review. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below and we'll be sure to answer them. And that, until next time.